On May 16, 1940, William Knudsen sat alone in his Detroit office at General Motors headquarters, the faint hum of the factory far below rising through the floor. He held a telegram from Washington, one that carried a message he struggled to believe. President Franklin Roosevelt had just addressed Congress with a challenge so enormous it bordered on impossible. America needed the capacity to produce 50,000 military aircraft per year. Knudsen was no ordinary industrialist. He was the president of the largest manufacturing company on Earth, commander of 200 factories and more than 300,000 workers. In 37 years, he had become the undisputed master of mass production. He understood machinery and labor and assembly lines better than anyone alive. And he understood exactly what Roosevelt's request meant. The president was asking American industry to rearm for a war the nation was not yet fighting but could no longer avoid. In 1939, the United States had produced fewer than 3,000 military aircraft. The entire Army Air Corps had barely 1,700 planes, many of them bordering on obsolete, relics of an earlier aviation age. Now Roosevelt wanted a production scale that exceeded everything built since the Wright brothers had lifted off at Kitty Hawk. The implications were chilling. If America required tens of thousands of aircraft, then the war-consuming Europe would soon engulf the world. Germany had smashed through Poland. France was collapsing. Belgium and the Netherlands had fallen. Britain stood alone. And Adolf Hitler did not believe for a second that the United States could meet Roosevelt's goal. In Berlin, the Führer reacted to Roosevelt's speech with amused contempt. His intelligence officers prepared a detailed assessment of American industrial capability, and their verdict was clear. The United States could not build 50,000 aircraft a year. The claim was propaganda designed to frighten Germany and raise Allied morale. Their logic seemed sound. America had no modern army, no experience with industrial-scale military production, and aircraft manufacturers still built planes like fine furniture, one at a time, hand-fitted by craftsmen. Cars could roll down assembly lines. Aircraft, they believed, never could. German analysts concluded America might reach 10,000 aircraft annually by 1942. 50,000 was fantasy. Hermann Göring reinforced the idea, assuring Hitler that Americans were good at refrigerators and automobiles, but German precision engineering was required to build true war machines. Hitler believed him. It would become one of the greatest intelligence mistakes in history. But not everyone thought Roosevelt was dreaming. At Ford Motor Company, a 60-year-old Danish-born production genius named Charles Sorensen saw something the Germans had missed. Sorensen had helped Henry Ford revolutionize manufacturing with the moving assembly line in 1913. Before Ford, cars were built like aircraft, slowly, piece by piece, by skilled artisans. Ford changed everything by breaking construction into small tasks performed by workers stationed along a moving line. Sorensen had watched automobile production explode into the millions. And as he listened to Roosevelt's speech, he realized the same principles could apply to bombers. Aircraft were complex, yes. But complexity could be managed. Parts could be standardized. Subassemblies could be built in parallel. A bomber could move down an assembly line just like a Model T. In January 1941, Sorensen traveled to San Diego with Edsel Ford to tour Consolidated Aircraft, the company that designed the massive B-24 Liberator bomber. Sorensen watched workers assembling planes with hand files, wooden templates, rough sketches, and improvised techniques. Every hole was drilled by feel, every part fitted by hand. Each bomber was slightly different because no component was truly standardized. The factory was proud to build one B-24 per day. Sorensen thought the system belonged in a museum. That night in his hotel room overlooking the coast, he stayed awake until 4 in the morning sketching the impossible, a mile-long assembly line that would produce one giant bomber every 60 minutes. When he showed the plan to Consolidated's leadership, they laughed. But when Sorensen returned to Michigan, he convinced Henry Ford to build the factory anyway. The factory would become Willow Run, the largest manufacturing building in the world. It stretched across 3.5 million square feet, designed by Albert Kahn to house not just an assembly line but an entire microcity dedicated to one purpose: mass-producing heavy bombers. The structure was so vast it required its own power plant, fire department, hospital, and airport. The assembly line itself ran a full mile with a 90-degree turn halfway through, a bend installed solely to avoid crossing into another county, which would have complicated taxes and labor jurisdiction. Willow Run was an industrial cathedral, built from 44,000 tons of steel, 1 million square feet of glass, and enough concrete to pave a highway between Detroit and Chicago. To support the work, Ford installed 7,500 machine tools, including gigantic presses weighing more than 100 tons. When German intelligence learned of Willow Run, they remained unconvinced. A giant building meant nothing if the people running it lacked training, tools, and aircraft building experience. And early results seemed to validate their skepticism. From October 1941 through February 1942, Willow Run produced nothing. Not one completed bomber. The press mocked the facility, calling it, "Will it run?" Congressional investigators swarmed the plant, wondering whether Ford had wasted millions trying to build aircraft the same way it built cars. Workers struggled with aluminum, a material entirely unlike steel. Tools designed for automobiles crushed delicate aircraft components. Engineering changes from the military arrived weekly, often forcing retooling that halted production altogether. Quality inspectors rejected entire batches of parts. The B-24 had more than 1 million components, almost 100 times more than a car, and one missing or flawed part could stop everything. The entire project began to look like a spectacular failure. But Sorensen refused to quit. He reorganized workflows, retrained thousands of workers, and redesigned thousands of tools. He broke the bomber into 11 major assemblies and 69 sub-assemblies, each built on its own line. He opened an apprentice school at Willow Run that trained 8,000 students every week. Slowly, painfully, the system began to evolve. In September 1942, nearly a year after the plant opened, the first complete B-24 rolled out, a flawed, imperfect machine used only for training. 56 more followed that were also deemed unsuitable for combat. But each failure taught workers something new. Every mistake improved the next plane. By early 1943, Willow Run was producing dozens of combat-ready bombers each month. In January, 31. In February, 59. In March, 75. Then 104. Then 130. The curve kept rising. Workers had learned their tasks. Tools had been refined. Processes synchronized. Sub-assemblies flowed into final assembly in a carefully timed dance. And then, in April 1944, Sorensen's 3-year-old promise became reality. Willow Run produced 453 bombers in a single month, more than one per hour. The line moved continuously. Workers installed engines, wings, gun turrets, wiring, hydraulics, and electronics with a rhythm so precise it resembled choreography. 42,000 people labored at Willow Run at its peak, a workforce unlike any America had seen. Women made up 65% of the staff, many working industrial jobs for the first time. African American workers played essential roles despite enduring discrimination. Fathers, mothers, teenagers, retirees, people who once sold groceries, plowed fields, taught school, or repaired shoes, now assembled some of the most complex machines on Earth. The federal government even built a town beside the factory, a place called Bomber City, to house 14,000 people with schools, clinics, shops, and playgrounds. Willow Run became not just a factory but a community built for one purpose: winning the war. The transformation spread nationwide. Boeing produced B-17 flying fortresses on assembly lines in Seattle. Douglas turned out C-47 transports in Long Beach. North American Aviation built P-51 Mustangs in California and Texas. Consolidated expanded production of B-24s in Fort Worth. Lockheed built P-38 Lightnings. Grumman built F-6F Hellcats. Republic built P-47 Thunderbolts. Across the country, automotive giants built engines, propellers, fuselages, and complete aircraft. In 1940, America produced 19,000 aircraft. By 1944, it produced 96,000 in a single year. From 1940 to 1945, American factories built more than 300,000 military aircraft, more than Germany, Japan, Italy, and Britain combined. German planners were stunned. By late 1942, reports reached Berlin describing American bomber formations of impossible size: 300, 400, even 500 aircraft at once. Göring refused to believe it, but the evidence kept mounting. By spring 1943, the U.S. 8th Air Force was launching massive daylight raids with thousands of aircraft, including escorts. Germany shot down dozens. America replaced them within days. No matter how many bombers fell, more arrived the following morning. Albert Speer, Hitler's armaments minister, later admitted that Germany had catastrophically misunderstood America's industrial power. Hitler believed quality would defeat quantity. But the Americans delivered both: better planes, built faster, in numbers that crushed German hope. The production miracle changed the war. P-51 Mustangs with long-range tanks escorted bombers to Berlin and back. C-47 transports moved entire armies across continents. B-17s and B-24s shattered German factories and rail lines. Mass production, the American invention perfected by Ford decades earlier, now became the weapon that Hitler had dismissed as impossible. In the end, Willow Run alone produced more aircraft in 1944 than Japan produced of all types that year. And behind every bomber rolling out of that mile-long line was the story of thousands of determined workers proving a dictator wrong. America was not the nation of farmers and car makers German intelligence imagined. It was a nation that, once awakened, could build anything on earth, and build it faster than anyone in history.